And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I'm so excited to welcome tonight the acclaimed author and hilarious guy, Ed Aymar, here to give us the inside scoop on his brand new book, racking up all the praise, No Home for Killers. Ed, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love your show. I don't like pressure, so calling me acclaimed and humorous are really two things. Author's fine. No, thank you so much for having me. I love the show. I'm so excited to be here. Your episode with Aline was terrific. I love whenever you have her on.
Yay!
No Home for Killers is about a jazz musician named Marcus Pena. He's rather acclaimed and privately very destructive and abusive. And he's murdered. And his two estranged sisters are brought together to find out what happened to him. The older one is a former social worker who's a bit burnt out. And the younger one is a secret vigilante. She's also a grant writer in DC, but secret vigilante is much sexier. We'll go with that.
It was so crazy reading it because I was like, oh my God, I've just never read a book about another secret vigilante. And as one myself, I'm so glad to see myself represented on the page finally.
I'd like to give voices to people. It's all about identity.
Exactly. Oh my God. Well, Ed, we got a lot to talk about, and I see the comments are already coming in. So I just want to welcome everybody. We are going live to 6 different locations across Facebook and YouTube. So friends, no matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. It is the right time. It is Mystery Monday because Mondays can be killer. We're going to make them a little less painful for you. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured author so you get to ask them anything. So ask Ed about No Home for Killers. Ask him about this jazz musician, Marcus. Is Marcus a thinly veiled, version of Ed? We are going to find out. Ask him about these sisters writing women, drawing tension. We got a lot to get into. So just type your questions in the comments. I'll get them right over to him. Kathy, welcome to the conversation. Saying hello, Ed and Sarah. I am loving that little mocha pot there. Eat, sleep, read. Welcome. I'm vibing with this. Erin, welcome to the conversation. Saying hi, Sarah and Ed. Hi, Erin. I'm loving that profile picture. Looks like Boucher Khan there. Is that Dennis Lahine? Melissa joining us from Australia saying, good day, Sarah. Good day, Melissa. Welcome to the conversation. Always a pleasure to see your name pop up. Kathy saying, I can't wait for the drawing at the end of this event for a trip to Hawaii. I know Ed's taking us. It's going to be so great.
Yeah, I made some promises. So,
tell us about the promises, Ed.
Yeah, I do have a question first for Melissa. Melissa from Australia.
Yeah.
I worked with a guy and he would always say, and he was from Australia, and he would always say, good day, mate, when he came in. And I never knew if that's what people in Australia actually said, or if he was just screwing with us because he was and I was like, I don't know, and I didn't know how to ask him. It'd be like if I went someplace and told everyone, like I went to Denmark and I was like, howdy, which is actually something people say, but I don't. So I was like, did they really say good day, mate? And he also said kangaroos were essentially their version of deer. Like you would see dead kangaroos on the side of the road and stuff. I couldn't prove any of this.
I used to live in Australia, and I can tell you, and Melissa, please chime in because obviously I am not a native Aussie, but I did live there, and I went to uni, which is their college system over there, and they do say good day, mate. It's just like, hey, how are you? Good day. And mate, of course, is like friend. So it just is like, if you're like, hey, friend, which is how I say hello to people over here in the US. Same thing, good day, mate. Good day, mate. So they don't say buddy. You know how guys are like, buddy, pal. That's not how men talk, but
no, I know.
Buddy. Yeah, let's have a beer. Crush it on my head. They say, good day, mate. Melissa is saying, yes, we actually do say that so much, not so much the big cities. Now I'm sounding British, but more the outback.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking that maybe people were lying to you and they were just saying it to you and they were just like pulling this joke on Americans, kind of like how British people always pretend they have this British accent. Then they go home and they're like, oh my God, that was so tiring. But I saw a Yank today and I had to do the whole, poppy field.
Yeah. They had to like put on their top hat and sing the chimney.
Exactly.
put on the Cockney rhyming slang. Lido girl, welcome to the conversation, saying, hey Ed, Sarah from Florida here.
Sarah.
Hi,
Hey,
Sarah from Florida. She said, no Home for Killers is fantastic.
That's so sweet. Thank you. Thank you.
Kathy saying she expects to be highly entertained by Mr. Aymar. Get going, Ed. Get us laughing.
I knew, by the way, before we go into that this conversation would go off the rails fairly soon. I didn't expect it to be within the first 6 minutes, but yeah. I want to set. I'm hoping that I set a record for Murder by the Book.
Woo! I love it. Carrie, welcome to the conversation. Saying Sarah is the mystery maven. Carrie, I will Venmo you that $5 later. Thank you for the testimonial. Michelle Richter, welcome to the conversation. Saying hi, Ed and Sarah. Hey, Michelle, I love your sketch there as a profile picture. Very cool. Erin saying she was hanging out with Dennis Lehane at BoucherCon, and he was so nice. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear that. Oh my goodness, we have Arlene Cogdell in the audience.
Oh, thank you, Arlene. Yay, that's so great. I love that. Makes me so happy, Colleen.
So
thank you so much.
Yay. So Arlene was actually on 2 weeks ago, I think, Arlene, and she picked her best books for the season. And guess who she picked?
I saw it. I was watching and I was very nervous. She also picked so many. I mean, it was so cool to see it and so cool to be in company with people like Tracy Clark and so many writers I admire. So yeah, I love it. Very excited.
I am a Tracy Clark stan. She's freaking amazing. I've read everything she's ever written. I love me.
She's so
Tracy
good.
Clark.
Same here.
Aaron says Ed is good at making promises. He doesn't tend to keep them here. Oh my God. So Ed, consummate liar, swindler.
I don't know if your security features are enabled here, Sarah, but we can fix that. Let me just.
Kathy wants you to know that she will be finding you if she doesn't win that trip, Ed. So get the Hawaii going. Oh my goodness. They're coming for you, Ed. Look out.
To be fair, that sounds like I'm giving you a trip. You're coming here. Welcome to DC.
Good thing Ed is broadcasting live from 6 floors below the Pentagon. Melissa wants you to know that kangaroos are not everywhere. They're not hopping through Sydney, but they are rampant through the outback and the bush.
Okay, that's fair. My friend actually was from kind of a remote area, so that makes sense. He told me he would like drive across and there would be like dead kangaroos on the side of the road. I was like,
there's live ones too. Let's keep it perky. Let's keep it positive.
Oh yeah, right. Sorry, yeah. They were all alive.
You know what else is weird, Ed, about Australia is there are actually more camels in Australia than there are in the Middle East. So a lot of the camels in the Middle East come from Australia. And so when you're driving through the outback, there's actually a lot of camels as well. A fact that not many people know about Australia, but I can testify to.
The interesting thing about that is the camels there, humps actually on the bottom.
Okay,
so now it looks like they're just pregnant camels walking around, but no, actually they, that's where they carry it. That's why they call it down under.
Oh my! Ed, now we just know. Now we know Ed it really is taking this in a different direction, the down under direction. Sarah, welcome to the conversation. Did you meet him? I'm not sure. Oh, I must have missed that one. Sarah, let us know who. Sarah is a fangirling, as we all are for Arlene Cogdell. We're so happy to have you here, Arlene. Erin says, don't tell Ed, Sarah, but No Home for Killers is incredible. It really is, Erin. I'm loving it too. Erin, tell us what you love about it. Oh my goodness. Arlene, we should have brought you on because you have so many friends here. Okay.
What are you saying? Whoa. Should have brought Arlene on.
I mean, bring her on as a cameo. Okay. We're going to need to see Ed in the boxing ring with a camel. We are loving this. Ed, one of the things that Arlene said among the many nice things she said about your book is she thinks that you are hilarious and you are one of her favorite Facebook accounts to follow.
Oh, sure.
I am also wildly entertained by your Facebook. Ed, what do you think there were also some really funny moments in this book. What do you think is the secret to those moments of levity, even in a thriller?
Well, personally, so the difference, there's two differences. The first is, personally, I set a low bar so that if so that people will be like, oh, hey, that wasn't bad. What do you know? For the book, though, for writing a book, it's different. I really want to write. I want to write humor in crime fiction, and I think I'm starting to get more into that. But it's also something that you have to be really careful about, because humor and crime fiction aren't a good combination, right? They don't generally go together very well. Only a few writers have done them really well. And to write a truly funny novel, like, that has crime fiction elements in it, someone like P.G. Wodehouse, I think that would be a very that's cute. I think that would be really difficult, because everything about the book has to be funny, right? Everything from the plot, the circumstance, the characters, their eccentricities around it. I don't necessarily want to do that, so it's a tough line to balance. When you're trying to write a heartfelt incident that occurs in someone's life, and then temper it with humor. And I'm still trying to refine that, trying to really get that down. I think there's a lot of cozy writers who do that really well.
Oh, interesting. So I think interesting. So this is actually bringing up a good point, because I laughed reading this book. So just for an example, the first thing, and it's not, in a slapstick sort of comedic way, but I still laugh. So for instance, the first moment that leaps into my mind is, as you mentioned, one of the sisters is a part-time vigilante. So sure. I don't think this is a spoiler. She takes care of men who do bad things. So she in her, I think it was her first chapter, she is in her vigilante mode, and she's got, a dude in the trunk who frankly deserves to be there, in my humble opinion. And she's screaming and he's thumping, he's kicking to get out. And she's like, shut up. And I don't know why. It was so funny. Or she thinks he's complaining about her musical choices. So she's screaming, I like this song. And she's got loud, angry music on to hype herself up to go, beat him up. Mm-hmm. Something about it was really funny. Maybe you didn't intend that, but I laughed.
No, I did. And I wanted to, with Emily, the character, there's a certain element to her that it took me a long time to figure out, where she kind of occupies almost a cartoonish sort of space. I kind of wanted to put somebody who's almost like the Looney Tunes version of a character in a real book, and she's counterbalanced by her sister Melinda, who's very serious and in a very traditional relationship and has a very suburban life, and Emily's kind of this gleefully violent individual who, Emily could have, at points been like leaping across rooftops and tossing bombs, like, she's very much almost a cartoonish kind of figure. But I wanted there to be a reckoning for her, and a way that she has she has to sort of face this kind of fantasy and realize what it does to the people around her and the people she cares about. But before that, I could have a lot of fun with her. She could sort of do anything, as long as it didn't go too far outside of the realm of possibility.
Kathy is saying a good stabbing always tickles my funny bone. Exactly. Yeah. Sarah saying Ed is the funniest dude I know. Laugh out loud for me. Right, Sarah? I also laughed out loud.
Same here.
Michelle saying Ed's so great at writing delightfully unhinged characters. Oh, I like that. Delightfully unhinged. That is such a great way to describe it. Leslie's joining us from Canada, giving us her signature Canadian hello. That's my Canadian accent. Aline is saying, not to get all serious, but you are getting a reputation for empathetic books with a strong streak of social justice. Let's talk about that, Ed. Your response. Are you trying to write that? Were you surprised to hear that? Give us the scoop.
Oh, that's lovely. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Right. I mean, I want to write. I want to write a book like that. The social justice is always, it's such a fundamental part of crime fiction, all the way from the even the pulp days to now. There's something in there where there's even the anti-heroes were against systems that were corrupt. So with that, yeah, there's and with noir, right? That's I don't think that I write noir, classic noir, but I think there's probably an offshoot of it, like a neo noir that my writing would probably fit in.
You
And
would
within
consider
that,
this neo noir.
yeah, I think so. I think given
Okay.
the ending and noir to me is a little different traditional
Yeah.
noir because there's a sense of the language and
Yeah.
the
It's like a
prose.
rat-tat-tat kind of.
Yeah, but I also think there's now it's sort of developed into other other kind of other branches of genre in crime fiction, and I think there's probably somewhere between noir and hardboiled where I fit. But for the social justice, yeah, that's important to me because it's something that we're sort of immersed in right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much happening and so much even within crime fiction. Like every month, there's some kind of catastrophe that happens, and people are jumping on social media to address it.
Yes.
And it's an exciting time, though, right? It's also exciting because it's a time of change. So it's messy and it's progressive, and occasionally it's unfair, and occasionally it's entirely in the right. But it's definitely you can almost feel the change, and it's exciting to see.
Exactly. And also, if we're going to stay with the crime fiction analogies, digging up the bodies, digging up the bones and taking them out and looking at them and examining them and bringing them into the light and talking about all these things that have lain buried and in darkness, and we sense that they're there and they're not right, but nobody really knows how to excavate them, or they are trying to excavate them but they're not getting heard about the issues. All of this is happening: the excavation, the conversation, the necessary dragging into the light. And so I think you're exactly right, both on the page in what you're addressing in terms of Marcus Pena being a musician who's writing music and lyrics, stomping for not stomping, but agitating for change.
Yeah.
And also, the moment that we're in off the page as well. So yes, to all of this. And Aline, thank you for bringing that up so beautifully and thoughtfully, as you always do.
I think, we're the one thing I want to add to that is I feel like we're in sort of a new literary movement that's happening. And I think, like when you look at traditional, this is going to be so nerdy, but when you look at like traditional literary movements like Romanticism and Modernism and Postmodernism, they were always defined by prose and style really first. And that was sort of their characteristics. And I think now we're in one where it's more defined by identity and the stories that are being told. And I think that we're not quite aware of that. It doesn't mean that not everybody, can write a story or tell a story or anything like that. I mean, there were plenty of writers during all sorts of literary periods and eras who were writing outside of that, and they did just fine. But I think we're going to be sort of defined by what we've traditionally called the other. It's going to be women, it's going to be writers of color, it's going to be queer writers, I think, who are really setting the stage. And it won't be defined as much by prose as it will by identity and storytelling.
Exactly. And I think they're bringing up a really good point, because those are voices who have until now had either not a seat at the table or a harder time to get that seat, or had not been afforded as many seats at the table. And so those voices and those stories are long overdue, much needed, and extremely, welcomed and interesting. And I am seeing that change that you're talking about, and it's so great. And Aline was talking about that when she was on. It's we're seeing that everywhere, from the cozies, where we're seeing different cultures and foods and brought onto the page, and how fantastic is that to be able to learn about different cultures and different foods and different because they're oftentimes cozies take place in a restaurant or a bakery or whatever, but then we're also seeing that in what I now know as neo noir, or I learned a new term today, or in seeing the portrayal of wonderfully diverse characters, so that the page is starting finally to look more like the world outside my window, and that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think that's an exciting thing. I do think there's probably one difference with,
Tell me.
Well, there's a sense of like these cultures, I'm always surprised when people are like, I don't really want to read about that or pick up a book by a black writer or a queer writer because it's something they're not familiar with. And I'm like, you read to get into other worlds.
Right.
But I do think that most people in this country, I read this stat a while ago, I don't know if it's true or not, so I can't verify it, but that most people in the most book buyers buy a handful of books a year, 2 or 3, or that's how many they read. And they're typically by the same writers that they read the year before. So they'll follow, a John Grisham and buy everything he reads buy everything he writes and read it. And they're very much in their comfort zone. And that's fine, but they may not want to be taken outside of that.
Ooh, interesting. So I think, I didn't know that. I think I read books to walk a mile in someone else's shoes and see the world through their eyes, and to, because that's the closest that I can get to not being in these shoes. And so I've always personally just been really interested to read, outside of myself, because I know what my lived experience is. So that's it. That's so interesting to know that that's not what the statistics are indicating.
Look at us having this like real like high level conversation. I mean, honestly, I'm reading most of this from a cue card behind my computer. So
So you're waiting for the next word.
So furthermore.
So Ed, we have questions coming in, and I'm going to get to every single one of them. Let's jump right in. Kathy wants to know, Ed, a serious question. Well, seriouser. That's like curious and curiouser, a la Alice in Wonderland. Ed, do you know how your stories will end when you start writing them, or do the characters or your son lead you there? Woo, give us the scoop.
Yeah, it's funny with kids because I never realized until I had a kid, and he was like 4 or 5, that they have no moral compass. They will, you really have to, they're little psychopaths, and you have to like rein that tendency in. But, very loving. I would say for me, I do, because I have to be everything I do has to follow like a strict outline. I still use a day planner. I'm 1,000 years old. Everything has to like, good.
Paper?
Follow,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Me too.
I can't use an electronic day planner. That's just like courting chaos. But use like, I have everything outlined and planned out. And I worry sometimes that that's going to make the story predictable. To me, it's gonna, but that doesn't tend to be the case, because the outline doesn't have every beat of it. It has the beats, but doesn't have, sort of the pulse of the story. So as I might deviate a little bit here or there, but I generally know where I'm going. And then sometimes something will happen where you're like, oh, if that happened, that would be really messed up. And you're like, I kind of think that needs to happen now.
Ooh. Okay. So I just want to be clear. So you write from you write from an outline, and so to answer Kathy's question, you do know how the story will end from the time you do the outline. Pretty much. I think sometimes it's changed, and I've worked with fantastic editors. Like, we share an editor, as we discussed. I just learned that
from the Walls, who was so good. I don't think the ending of either of the books that I've written with her have changed, but she's definitely introduced elements to me where I'm like, oh, that you're right. I really need to hit that beat.
Now let's dive a little more into Kathy's question though. When you sit down to write the outline, do you know how the story will end, or does it come to you as you're writing the outline?
It usually comes through the outline.
So you sit down. So you sit down and you're like, 2 sisters and their estranged jazz musician brother Marcus. Take me where you'll go story, or you are like, this is how it's going to end.
I kind of, man, I don't even remember now, huh?
Come on.
I think like, I mean, maybe I think usually I get like, at first it's like a combination of outlining and writing, and you're doing them both at the same time. And then the story sort of leads to the end itself. It kind of happens naturally, You know, it's sort of like writing a short story, which I don't do any outlining for. And I don't write a lot of short stories, but when I do, I don't do any outlining, but I do have a very strong sense of how the story is going to end and where the characters are and what they're going to do. I may not know exactly. There's always like a twist or something that's going to happen, but I kind of know who's going to be left standing.
I like how you said, when I don't write a lot of short stories, but when I do, it reminds me of that. Is it a tequila commercial? It's like, I don't often drink tequila, but when I do, it's
but when I do.
Erin is saying unhinged is the best description. Yeah, Michelle, that was a good call. Sarah's saying you're a marketing genius too. And do you enjoy the marketing part of the writing process? Or tell us about that.
Marketing's my day job, and it's been my day job for
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 25 years. And it's so I kind of like it. I mean, it's a lot to do because I'd rather not do it. You know, I mean, I'd rather not have to sell my own book. No, I like that. This part's fun. I mean, like doing, setting up ads on Facebook and stuff like that, or Amazon. It's that kind of stuff, like going through different metrics and looking at different analysis, like that kind of stuff. I find super boring, and I don't want to do press kits and send them out or anything. But I mean, my sense is that if there's something I'm doing that's boring, I've got to find a way to make it fun. And marketing should be fun. It should be the kind of thing that's going to give me joy to send out, because then it'll give someone ideally joy to receive.
I love that. So Ed, let's get into some of the praise, because the praise has been amazing. And I want to talk about that. And then I want to talk about the craft behind the praise. So let's kick off with Kirkus, who I believe the New York Times called reliably curmudgeonly. But they had just happy things to say about your book. So they said, think your family is dysfunctional. Welcome to the big time. The perfect gift for friends worried about spending the holidays with their relatives. Things could be worse. So let's talk about this dysfunctional relationship between the two sisters and the brother. First of all, Ed, I don't know why I'm getting a vibe that you have two sisters. Do you have two sisters?
No, I'm an only child.
You're an only child?
Yeah. I always wanted to have a sibling, or a couple of siblings. But yeah, no, I was an only child.
Okay, so you had to imagine the dysfunctionality between these three siblings, the sisters and the brother and Marcus.
Yeah, and I really like that, because my wife has two siblings. And not that they're dysfunctional. I'm not saying that. In case they're listening, they're kind of dysfunctional. No, but there's this relationship between siblings that I really love, and I've always sort of admired from afar, where they accept each other.
Okay.
And it's very much like an acceptance. Like, but that's I know some siblings have fought and split apart and don't talk, and I've seen that. But I also sort of like the kind of exasperated sigh, but he's my brother, so what are you going to do? Kind of relationship.
So you feel sad that you missed out on that?
A little bit, but what I've found, and I always said if I had a kid, I would never just have an only child, because I was miserable as an only child. But now that I have a kid, there's no way. The minute my wife gave birth, I just shoved her off the table and I climbed on, and I was like, "Cut me, doc."
Oh my God, I love it. So your kid will be an only, is and
no, I'm done.
Wow. Okay. And let's talk about this review from, I'm going to pop it up so we can all read it together. Hillary Davidson. This is a bold, relentless, breathtaking thriller from start to finish. And how do you write a bold, relentless, breathtaking thriller from start to finish? Did it come out bold, relentless, and breathtaking? Did Jessica, say, we need more bold, Ed, hashtag get more relentless, pedal to the metal. You're in second gear. I need you to at fifth. What can you tell us?
So some of that comes in. I think I write, I write my first drafts are always a little bit unrestrained. I let it go into places where I may not want it to, and then I cut it back. And I have a couple of friends who do that too. And I think that's necessary, but I really don't have a very good sense. I don't know. Maybe you're the mystery maven. I mean, are you desensitized to like, because I'm like, I have no clue what is permissible or what is
Ooh.
not. And I need people to like rein me in when they read my they're like, that's too dark. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. I had no idea.
So Jessica had to rein you in.
She did.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was great. It was really helpful because there was so much about the book that I was, you just edit it so many times, and
God, yes.
I can edit forever. So
yes,
at some point I'm lost. I also get confused when people tell me stories and I think about it and it ends up in my book, and then I forget through the process of editing and drafts that this was something someone told me. So after the book comes out, I've had friends like, that was in confidence. And I'm like, what was? Oh, right. The affair. Sorry.
and quickly deletes his last Facebook post. So she had to rein you in. So we're wondering, what that first draft looked like. She was like, you are scaring us. You're getting so many laughing emojis on Facebook.
Well, it was kind of like, there was a part, my favorite edit note I've ever received was, she cannot bite off somebody's nose again. And I was like, oh, this one I'm going to keep. That's what I really liked.
His editorial letter says she cannot bite off someone's nose again.
Yeah. And I was, but honestly, I'm really glad that she told me that because, again, I was just like sort of blind to it after a while.
Okay, yeah. So you were like, I've got a kid. Kids are biters. Let's just go for the biting.
Well, it made sense, I think, in the context of the story. You really have to set that kind of thing in a good place where it makes sense. But yeah, no, it was really good to have that because I don't, it was unnerving. We talked about, earlier before the show started, we talked about reviews and getting reviews and what that means. And, with Jessica, with my editor, she was one of the few people who saw the book who didn't owe me anything. Was really just invested in it. Like you can trust, you have some friends you can trust, other friends who are going to, lie very politely to you.
Right. The lasagna was delicious. No, your butt doesn't look fat in those jeans. Yes, I loved the 4 different nose biting scenarios.
You've seen me in jeans?
Not yours.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
You always look good in jeans.
Thank you.
Michelle says once you bite one nose off, the next one's much easier, right?
Well, you get a taste for it.
Oh,
so.
Oh my gosh.
But hey, who knows?
Boom. Ed's second career is not marketing. He moonlights as a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
And
this is why I have another job.
Ed has 3 jobs. I want to get over to this review from Jennifer Hillier. She says, No Home for Killers is a breathtakingly paced thriller, a character-driven journey of rage and justice that will leave you pondering the subtleties between good and evil and right and wrong. So let's talk about your character-driven journey of rage and justice. Tell us about the development of these characters and specifically how you, a cisgendered male, wrote 2 women, and I really liked them both.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's really tough because I'm very conscious of identity, and I've written about identity and appropriation, and and that's not something you ever want to do.
No.
But nobody's saying that you cannot write a certain character. It just has to be there are certain things that you have to be aware of when you're doing it, and I get really nervous about that because my characters for my 3 books have been the protagonists have been women.
Yeah.
And part of that is because I write a lot about, I usually have an element of sex trafficking in my work. And that's been because I really researched that heavily for my first novel or for The Unrepentant. And it came, it just stuck with me. It was hard to shake away. And it was very hard for me to see in those worlds male characters as the heroes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, because I think people don't know that that's actually still a real issue in this country and worldwide. in the United States and worldwide. And I didn't know that until probably a couple of years, maybe 10 years ago. And I started, and when you start to look at the statistics, it's extremely shocking, upsetting, and heartbreaking. So yes. So, okay. So that's how you came to write the women. Now, that's why you started writing female characters. Now tell us about the character development in this quote character driven journey, says Jennifer Hillier. How do you develop these women characters? So let's start with the sister of your choice. Do you have beta readers? Do you ask your wife to read it? How is it Jessica? How are you writing your female characters?
Well, I think most of my friends, my close friends, are women.
Interesting.
And that's, I get a lot from them. Mainly, I have more conversations with them than with my male friends, which are just like, hey, head nods,
Go Pats, go.
Yeah. But so that's part of it. The other thing is, like you said, I have my beta readers who, whenever I use beta readers, my agent, my editor, are all women, and they're very quick, if not a little maybe too excited, to call me out on my male BS stuff. So I try to, if I get something wrong, like I've said before, like for me, the best note I can get in a manuscript, and one I mull over is, I don't think I would do this. And I'm like, why not? What am I missing here? What am I not getting about women in general? And that's really
more
important.
Men should ask.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't want to. I think the problem that a lot of men make, and one thing I try to avoid, is you try to show off, right? You try to say, like, I'm gonna write women so well that, let me tell you, here, ladies, here's what cramps feel like. And you're like, this isn't something we should do. This isn't something we should say. And nobody wants to know our imagined thoughts on this.
Let me mansplain it to you.
Exactly. So I try to avoid that. I don't use a first person POV for that reason. I try to generally go into third person, and that gives me a little bit of distance. So I don't have to get entirely in her head or explain her thoughts. And there's so many good, fantastic women writers right now who are doing amazing things, and they're so introspective and so fascinating. I just read a book by Sally Hepburn or something, I think, and
Sally Hepworth, yes,
so Hepworth, so great. It's just so May Cobb, Jennifer Hillier, Hillary, so many women who are writing, particularly around psychological fiction, and that are going places that I don't think I just honestly don't believe the genre's ever been.
I love that. I was waiting. I thought you were going to say something else. That's why I was pausing.
But that
was a complete thought.
Cue card ended.
I was waiting in case there's another one. Sarah says, Ed is a fantastic friend. That is so good to know that he is as he seems. I'm interested to know that your choice not to write a first person. Oh, there goes my water. A first person POV is so that you don't have to get too close. So you don't have to try to get fully inside that female brain. I appreciate the thought behind that. I want to remind y'all, the book is out now, and you can grab your copy from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore right here at Murder by the Book. So here's that link, wherever you're watching from, Facebook or YouTube. Click and order so that you too can get your mitts on No Home from Killers and immerse yourself in the world of the murdered Marcus Pena, his vigilante sister by night, and his other sister, who is a social worker, whose point of view I also really enjoyed, as she's wrestling with the people that she couldn't save and the people whose stories impacted her as she did work to help them. So I loved both of these. Okay, here's the link wherever you are. Click, order No Home for Killers. Ed, anything you wish I had asked you? Anything you have never told anybody about this book before that you would like to share now?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say one of the things I wished I touched on,
Yeah, tell
and
me.
it was actually came through Jessica. One of her notes was originally this book had 3 POVs, and one was Marcus, and he was
Oh,
still
interesting.
dead, but it was his past, and sort of leading up to his death. And Jessica's suggestion was, one thing about Marcus is I hate him, and I don't want him to have a POV. And this isn't his story. This is a story about his corrosive effect on these 2 women.
Ooh.
And I thought about that, and I was like, you're right. And the idea of his like shadow kind of lingering over them, and still affecting their lives, really, to me, made it a much stronger, more haunting book.
Ooh, that is fascinating. So because I actually wondered if that had ever, I wonder if Marcus had ever gotten, had ever been on the page in one of the prior drafts. And so I love that Jessica told you, this is the story of these women, of these sisters.
Yeah, and it made a lot more sense to me, because then I could sort of, one of the things, I guess, okay, yeah, one thing that I haven't talked about with the book was,
Ooh.
it was very, for me, I think I've mentioned this before, maybe I have talked about it, but having a violent woman in the book without explaining directly what led to her violence was difficult for me, right? Because
Ooh.
that's not something you often find. I mean, violent criminals are typically almost always men, statistically.
Yeah.
And it was, that I didn't want to have something that was cliched to explain it. I don't want to have like an abusive home she came from or anything. Just this sense of Marcus and kind of his larger than life figure and personality would have been enough to affect her and affect Melinda in different ways. They both think they're helping people, but they have these different approaches to it that are that have proven to be self-destructive for both of them.
Because I think the other thing that's interesting about siblings is that I know, as I am one of 4, that you always see and remember things very differently. Same experience, same family, same room, same memory, but you feel very differently about the other people in the room, about yourself, about your sister or your brother, and how they perceive it. And so I liked how you played with that as well.
Oh yeah, thanks, thank you. Yeah, it meant a lot to me. I was surprised. It did really well in the category of sibling fiction, and I was like, I didn't know that was a category, and B, I didn't know that that was like something that people were really pulling from the book. But you never know what people are going to take from your book, so it's kind of a neat thing.
Oh my gosh, Margaret saying, I am one of 4 too, Sarah. Irish and Italians think Catholic Church. LOL. Exactly. Oh my goodness. Y'all, we are over time, but when you're having so much fun, you can't cut it off because, hello, we're having a great time. It's Mystery Monday. Kathy's saying, I remember my brother chasing me with a knife. He remembers teaching me coloring skills. Exactly. He's like, hey, remember the time we had the great day and we made spaghetti? And you're like, hey, remember the day I thought you were trying to kill me? And I like talked about it with my therapist for 6 years afterward. Like it just, everybody remembers it so differently. And I totally hear you, Kathy. I get it. Oh my goodness. Margaret saying SDV on a roll today. Yes, ma'am. We're rolling. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. We're having so much fun. Y'all, I want to remind you, order this book. You are going to love it as much as I do. And let me know what scenes you laugh out. Let me and Ed know what scenes you laugh out loud to as well. I'll be back at the top of the hour with #1 New York Times bestselling author Jonathan Kellerman. Go get a snack, get a drink, get some coffee, and I will see you then. Ed, come back when your next book is out. We need you to wildly entertain us again.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'm so excited for August when your book comes out, right? August?
Yes. I'm scared.
Can't wait. Thank you so much for having me here. And thanks everybody for joining in.
All right. See you soon, everybody.